Hi everyone, welcome to Cambridge Clinical. Today we'll be looking at tax questions in the Quantitative Reasoning section of the UCAT exam. Tax is a common question type in the UCAT exam. These questions may seem daunting at first, but with some practice, you'll be able to tackle these questions swiftly and accurately. Before we begin, pause this video here to read a practice question and attempt to answer the question on the right. When you're ready, continue playing the video. A tax bracket is an income range to which a specific tax rate applies. The tax brackets in the UCAT are not flat, but rather progressive. This means that the more you earn, the more you are taxed. Let's use this practice question to understand this concept. Pause the video to attempt the question and resume when you're ready. From the table on the right, we can see that Steve's income of $45,000 is found within the $40,000 to $60,000 tax bracket. Thus, he is effectively maxing out the previous brackets. In other words, his income allows him to progress from the lower brackets into the $40,000 to $60,000 bracket. To tackle this question, we must first work out how much Steve pays in each tax bracket. Steve does not pay any tax in the first $12,000 of his income. In the next tax bracket, Steve pays 10% on $13,000, which is the size of the tax bracket, or rather, the difference between £25,000 and £12,000. Here, 10% of 13,000 is 1,300. Moving on, Steve pays 3,000 in the 20% tax bracket. This comes from multiplying 20% by 15,000. As Steve's income falls within the £40,000 to £60,000 tax bracket, the amount he pays is calculated first by finding the difference between £45,000 and £40,000. This is £5,000. 30% of 5,000 is 1,500. Thus, in this bracket, Steve pays £1,500. With these calculations done, the amount Steve pays towards tax becomes easy to find out. It's simply the addition of the previous calculations. With this, Steve pays £0 plus £1,300 plus £3,000 plus £1,500. In total, Steve pays £5,800 in tax. When answering tax questions, a great time-saving tip is to keep note of the tax paid at each bracket, as this may become useful in later questions. Trust me, a little organization now saves a lot of stress later. In the UCAT exam, you may be asked to work backwards to find the salary from a given tax payment. Pause the video now to attempt this question, and when you're ready to resume watching, play. To tackle this question, we must use the tax amounts we calculated from the previous questions and work backwards. In the first tax bracket, Jasmine pays nothing towards tax. In the second tax bracket, Jasmine pays £1,300 towards tax, as calculated before. The total tax paid at the end of this taxable income range is £1,300. In the third tax bracket, Jasmine is liable of up to £3,000 towards tax. The total tax paid at the top of this taxable income range is £4,300, which is £1,300 plus £3,000. As Jasmine's total tax liability of £3,300 exceeds the £1,300 paid at the top of the second bracket, it is clear part of her income must fall into the third bracket. The additional tax due in the third bracket is therefore £3,300 minus £1,300, which is equal to £2,000. Because the third bracket's tax rate is 20%, we can find the portion of her income in that bracket by solving 0.2 times x equals to 2,000. Thus, x is equal to £10,000. Therefore, Jasmine must earn £10,000 in the third bracket to incur £2,000 of tax at the 20% rate. The final step is to determine the total income. Since she reaches the top of the second bracket at £25,000 and then has an additional £10,000 of income in the third bracket, Jasmine's total income is simply £25,000 plus £10,000, which is equal to £35,000. So now that you've seen how to break down a reverse tax and normal tax question step by step, hopefully you now feel more confident tackling these type of questions in the UCAT exam.